Welcome back to our 66th episode of the Launch Your Farm Show, where I interview Beatty Carmichael, who's the CEO of Agent Dominator. In this episode, Beatty and I talk about why agents need to learn the key fundamentals of choosing the right farm to ensure success. And Beatty shares how you can use some simple calculations to determine whether a farm is worthwhile for you to pursue or not. And we talk about what type of marketing you should use in your farm if you want to get actual results and get the phone to ring with qualified leads. And Beatty shares a super easy way to convert more deals from your farm by showing sellers that you're capable of doing these 3 very specific things that matter to them. And we talk about how agents can get 8 out of 10 listings in their farm when they learn to apply the right approach, systems, and marketing. Plus, we talk about a ton of other ideas that you can use to grow your geographic farm. So be sure to check out this episode, like and subscribe, and enjoy the episode with Beatty. Welcome back to another episode of the Launch Your Farm Show. I'm your host, Ryan Smith, and today we've got a great guest. It's Beatty Carmichael. He's the CEO of Agent Dominator. So Beatty, take a second, tell us a bit about yourself and why you're here.
Well, very good. So as you mentioned, I'm the CEO of Agent Dominator. I love training. I love geographic farming, and I'm here because I think I can help a lot of people. I've actually been in marketing since 1997 professionally. Helping people drive results through creative and best practices in marketing. And then when we started in real estate in 2012, right off the bat, we had a number of agents start earning 6-figure incomes within their first year in geographic farming. We learned a lot of things that work, a lot that don't. And so I'm excited to be here, Ryan, and just to share what actually works in geographic farming.
Awesome. Yeah. And it's something that we're passionate about. And I'd like to always know how you got to where you got and what drove that kind of the backstory, because I think it helps really help other agents see the results and understand the who you are and what you do. So take us back to that beginning you mentioned a long time ago. You've been in marketing for, so let's hear the quick version.
Gosh, I've never had that question asked in a long time. So the simple answer is I grew up in a very successful surgeon's family. We traveled a lot. We had a great lifestyle, and you'll laugh at this, Ryan. So this is 1980s. Okay, I get into Amway because I saw that they had a recurring income, and it didn't work. And then I went and worked for a guy who did office supply sales. So I started driving around, and we had this deep conversation. This is 1986 or 85. 88, somewhere in there. But what was interesting is he was trying to paint this picture. He said, Beatty, if you're here for just a number of years, this guy over here, he's been here about 10 years. He made $72,000 last year. Okay. And I'm over here, just a college grad. And this was my honest comment. I said, how can anyone live on less than $100,000 a year? And we realized that we were unequally matched for the role. Okay. Yeah. So that launched me into how do I get back to the lifestyle I had with my family. And I love the idea of recurring income. That's why I got into Amway. But and then my father started to share with me a guy named Jay Abraham. And for anyone who's heard marketing, okay, Jay Abraham in the modern times, is kind of the grandfather that really launched a lot of entrepreneurs in the direction of using best practices in marketing to grow a business. Yeah. And from there came Gary Halbert, okay, which most people, and if you haven't heard of Gary Halbert, you probably heard of Ted Kennedy, yeah. Dean Jackson. Yeah. Who's the agent up in Canada that was I'll sell your house or buy it? What's his name?
What's his name?
Craig Proctor.
Craig Proctor. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
just outside
all of us are, you could call us disciples of Jay Abraham and Gary Halbert and this crew of people. Yep. So that got me excited. I started to work with an attraction program in the telecom business using some of these things, and they started to grow. And then in 97, I spun out of that. I left it with my partner and started my own business to do that, using some things we developed. And from there, it just continued on. And there's something about the marketing that really caught me. And this is what I love about geographic farming as well. Anything you do in business, it's all about marketing if you are the one responsible for bringing in the money. And marketing will generate a recurring income if you do it right.
Yeah.
And even, what's interesting in real estate, we don't think about you having a recurring income because it's a one and done type of program. Do you
Yep.
know that?
Yep.
So you're always in the hunter mode.
Yep.
But what happens is when you do it right, your marketing is always hunting for you.
Yep.
And so it creates the recurring sales. All you do is you sit back and take the orders. And that's what has always fascinated me with marketing. That's what drew me into it. And that's why you won't get me to shut up about good practices in marketing today. I can promise you on that.
And that's something I'm very passionate about. And my own story, when I got into business, I joined a team that used Craig Proctor's systems, and I learned direct response marketing. I learned how to attract people rather than try to hunt them, like you said. And I always said, if I would have joined a team that was just cold calling based or prospecting, like cold prospecting based, I probably wouldn't be in the business. But I learned the importance of good marketing and how to attract people to get them to reach out to you and to build your pipeline that way. And it's so important. And I know a lot of our listeners have struggled with farming. A lot of our listeners have tried farming. They've dabbled in it. They've used it. They've heard different things. And I teach a whole class on myths about farming. And there's a lot of myth understandings about farming. What do you think is the kind of core fundamentals of getting started in a farm? Because I know that's something you're passionate about. How, like, if it's just walk an agent through getting started in farming for them, and what's the key things?
Yeah. So the key thing, the most important part is where are you going to farm? I remember talking to one client. This is what happens with most agents. Okay. So we've just signed up this client for geographic farming, and I'm coaching her through the process of getting started. And I was asking her, so where are you going to farm? And she lives in my town, so I kind of knew the area. Yeah. And she said, at the base of the mountain, basically. And I said, okay, and why do you want to farm there? She said, well, that's where I live. Okay, fair enough. So then I asked her a question that I thought was a good question. Are you more interested in farming where you live or farming to make the most money? Yeah. Because we can do both. I mean, we can do one or the other, but we usually cannot do both, okay? Yeah. You can either farm where you want to farm, or you can farm where you want to make the most money. Yeah. And what do you think she said?
Where I live.
Right. Well, she actually said, no.
Make the most money.
Yeah. Make the most money. If I'm going to be investing money, I want to make the most return. Okay. Yeah. So then let's start this over again, and let's actually go through a process. And this is what most agents don't realize. And it took us a while to figure this one out. I actually had, I'll give shout out where it belongs. One of my first client, first real estate client back in 2012 was, and still is, a super top producer. And everything he's touched, it turns to gold. And we started working together, and I picked his brain about farming and what creates results. And he actually started identifying these items for me. I perfected them a little bit more. But this is what happened. When we started to look at those farms that were successful and those that were not, you can put them into two categories, actually three. Number one of the big categories is just expectation. Yep. Success is based on having right expectations, because if you have wrong expectations, you quit too early. Okay. Yep. So if we take the expectations out and just actually look at the actual implementation of what you do, many farms fail because they're in the wrong location. Yeah. And the other farms fail because they have the wrong marketing. Yep. But when you have the right location, right marketing, then as long as you stay with it, it's going to produce. So the most important thing is, it's actually a couple of serious things. We identified, I think it's 5 different ingredients to laser pick the right farm, but there are only 2 that are most important. The first one is what's called turnover rate. Now, everyone uses the term turnover rate. Some people really know what it is, and some people just heard about it. Do you have any idea what turnover rate is?
I would like to, because I teach it. So it's the number of home sales over a 12-month period divided by total number of sales in the area, and it gives you an average percentage.
Perfect. So it's just the percentages home that's sold, and in this case, a 12-month period, which is a good measurement time. So what turnover tells you is this, real simply, is if I want to make more sales, am I more likely to make more sales if I have 5 homes that sell or if I have 50 homes that sell in a farm?
50.
I'm going to pick up more if I've got more homes turning over. So that's what the turnover rate does. It lets you know at what velocity they're selling.
Yep.
What happens is a lot of people choose a farm based on turnover rate, and they can make money, but they don't make as much money as they can when they add one more factor. Can you guess what that one more factor might be?
Price.
Absolutely. So you look at, and here's an interesting thing. So now I'm going to pick your brain a little bit and say, okay, do you mind if I put you on the spot?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, great.
It's a good test.
It's a good test.
Yeah.
We'll see how great of an expert you are. No, I'm teasing. I better not do that.
No, I'm happy.
Okay. So let's say I've got 3 or 4 or 5 farms I'm considering in an area, and I'm looking at turnover and I'm looking at price. How do I compare them in an apples to apples so I know what really is the better farm to target?
So from my perspective, a number I use, I call it the total farm value. So I take the total number of sales multiplied by the average commission in that farm, and then gives you an average output of if I was to extract every piece of business from that area. And then I use that number to say, what's the total dollars that I could take out of that farm, and then that helps make my decision that way.
Yeah, so that puts it on an apples to apples basis. So you call it total farm value or commission value. What farm value?
Total farm value.
Okay, I call it the sales turnover rate. I'm a little bit different, but we hit the same number. For me, it's you take the average turnover rate multiplied by the average sales price, and that gives you what I call the average sales turnover rate. And then everything's on an apples to apples basis, because this gives you the equivalent value of one farm compared to another. The other thing that's interesting is that allows you to start to separate out what's working, where one farm may have a value of 10,000, the other 20,000, which means you'll make twice as much money, all else being equal, in the 20,000. But then there's one other thing, and that is, would you rather get paid now or get paid in a year? What's your thought?
Depends on what the commission is, but now, generally.
So you're going to earn the same commission. You're going to earn $10,000 to make this sale. You want to get paid now, or you want to get paid a year from now?
Now.
Okay. So that is a days on market, because one of the things you want to analyze is how quickly are you going to get paid once you get a listing. If you have a short days on market, I may go with a lower average value in that farm for a 3 days on market than a little bit higher value that has 180 days on market. Okay. So what I'm looking for is how quickly am I going to get paid on that? And then there's another thing that we call, I call it agent dominance. And this has to do with what are you competing with? And we'll move into this probably as we get further down in this conversation. But there's one of the most important things in farming is this thing called a mindset dominance. Okay. If you've ever read the book, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, Gary Keller wrote that, and he called it Mindshare Dominance. He actually gets it from a book from the 1980s called Positioning. And it's talking about when that homeowner out there is thinking about, who do I call to sell a home? Only 2 or 3 agents actually pop in the homeowner's mind. And if you're not one of those 2 or 3 agents, you're not going to be called. And so when you look at a farm, one of the ways you can identify if there's already sort of a mindshare dominance in that community already is looking at who is the predominant listing agent. And if you have a listing agent that's at 25% or more, some people draw the line at 20, then you've got a farm that already is geared to remember and know that agent's name, which means your marketing is going to be harder because you got to push them off of that pedestal to put your name there. Does that make sense, Brian? Okay. So one of the things that you look at all these are subjective, okay, at this point. And when you're looking at different farms, where to start, you want to look at the value of the farm and pick it primarily based on that. But then you can fine tune your results by looking at the average days on market, looking at what agent dominance there is. And this isn't as much of an issue today because we've been in a seller's market.
Yeah.
But when we flip, and it's going to flip, and it's going to turn into a buyer's market, there's one other thing that you have to look at, and that's what's called the success rate. The success rate is what I call, you look at how many listings came on the market in the last 12 months and how many sales, okay? And the success rate is the percentage of sales to listings, because if you're in an area where 100 listings come on the market and 5 homes sell, that's a 5% success rate, which means you're likely not going to make much money there.
Yep.
So find something that has a high success rate. That's not an issue today, but as you know, depending on when someone's listening to this audio, in years to come, that's going to be a big issue. And then there's one more area, and this is, you know, when you do investments, you typically look at, let's say you're going to invest in a stock. You're going to look at not just the stock price today from versus where it was a year ago, but you're going to go backwards, you know, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and look and see what is the trend of that stock. You can do the same thing if you're willing to do the extra effort in farming and look at the trend of a farm, and you can actually start to see if the area you're targeting is on the increase, if it's plateaued, or if it's on the decrease. Because the last thing you want to do is start investing good money, time, and effort into a farm because today it looks good.
Yeah.
It may be the top value producing farm, but next year it's dropped half that value. The next year it drops again. And now you're into an area that has no value. So for kind of a long-term approach, I call it the crystal ball analytics. It's basically doing the same, the farm valuation, the turnover rate times the average sales price, and do that each year for the previous 2, 3, and 4 years individually. And then what that allows you to do is to see a trend of what that farm is doing. Are people moving into it or getting out of it? And now you can look at all of that and be very scientific of where you want to farm. So that's a lot better than saying, well, I want to farm here because that's where I live. Okay.
Exactly.
It's really, I don't know if that makes sense, but that's.
Yeah, that's literally, that's the language I speak. That's what I preach. The one thing I also add is looking with those numbers is do that with every one of those categories that you talked about, the agent dominance, the market share, all of those things too, because
great.
I talk about, agents will say, well, so-and-so owns this area. And I say, look at the trends. Because there was in an area when I was looking to start farming, there was a lady that had 15% market share. And at one point, but if you watch her trends, she went in over 7 years, she went from 15% market share to 1% market share. And she lost her dominance because what happened was they had new home builds happening in the area, and she had built relationships with people, the locals and the community in the area, but she wasn't reconnecting with the new agents or the new people moving in, and she just kept losing her market share. And there's more and more homes being built, and she kept losing how much she had. So yeah. I tell people that's one way or the other for all of them. It could be going up, it could be going down for competition, it could be going up or down for price, it could be going up and down for days on market. So you have to do that snapshot. And this is where a lot of agents, they give up before they even started, and they don't want to put the time in to do that. And I'm sure you've experienced that with other agents going, well, just tell me the best area to farm.
That's right. Just tell me.
It takes time. It takes some resources. And that's the difference between someone who's going to succeed versus someone who's going to try it and hope that it works. And if you try it, the odds are not that great if you don't really know what to look for or don't want to do the work.
Yeah. I want to talk on a couple other things as we're talking on the same subject. Sorry, I'm getting excited again.
Yeah,
calm my excitement down. Yeah. But if you look at marketing as a whole, because that's what geographic farming is. And by the way, this applies to any list that you market in real estate. There are really 3 categories of where you get your 100% maximum results. About 40% of your results comes from your list. 40% comes from your offer. And 20% comes from your content of how you write that offer, what we call the copywriting, okay? And so what we're really doing is we're spending a lot of time on the first 40%, because if you get your list wrong, nothing works.
Yeah.
Okay. If you target a farm that has a 0% turnover rate, I'm sorry, you're not going to make any sales.
Yeah.
But I want to simplify it, because I realize a lot of people probably listening to this and getting this pit in the bottom of their stomach going, oh my gosh, I'll never be successful. This sounds like so much work. Let me kind of simplify. Probably 80 to 85% of all the heavy lifting of which farm to target is simply your farm value.
Yep.
take the turnover rate, multiply it by the average sales price, and you're pretty much there, because there's almost never a dominant agent.
Yeah, 100%. I
Yeah.
say it all the time.
Yeah, there's almost never any significant difference between days on market, unless you're in a really high, super high price range. Everything else is kind of similar. So if you just want the easy route, take the farm value, plot them all on a graph or in an Excel spreadsheet, and you got it. Okay, so make this thing easy, because you got to get started.
Yep.
But for those of you who are a little bit more business minded, you pay an admin to do your work for you. Okay, pay them to do a little bit more research so you can make a 100% decision now just an 85% decision.
Yep. Yeah, I think a lot of agents they overcomplicate it or they undercomplicate it, and it's that kind of happy medium of knowing the right things. And that's what I teach, and then you teach as well, is that finding the right numbers, starting with that. And I think the other key of it with it is making that decision. Like you said, that's the next step. You can do the research, but you have to make the commitment to doing that. Without the commitment, you can have 50 spreadsheets, you can have the best area picked out, but if you don't commit to actually take the next steps, then it doesn't matter how good you are or what your plan is, because you got to take action on it.
Yeah, I remember. So I've got a book on my bookshelf. It's called The Driving Force. It's by a guy named Peter Schutz. I've heard him speak. I was involved with a small business group, and he's come and speak a number of times. So for some of our automobile aficionados out there, Peter Schutz was the CEO of Porsche Automotive, and he turned them around in the late 80s. They'd come out with the 928 and the 928S, and they started losing money because they lost their focus. And one of the things he talks about in this book was real important. The most important thing in making decisions is you got to make a decision and simply execute on it. A flawed decision executed well is better than a perfect decision never executed on. Exactly. So just get out the door, okay? Do the simplest you can and start moving if that's what it takes.
Yeah, that's great advice. So I want to dive into the marketing side of things, because again, I find that's where a lot of agents struggle as well. They either, like you said, do the wrong marketing to the wrong people, or have the right marketing to the wrong people, and they don't really get the offer. They don't get the next 40%. So let's talk about that next 40%, because I think that's important to have the right pitch, the right presentation, the right offer, and the right marketing people. What should agents be looking for? They've got their list, they've got the area they're going to farm. What's next?
Oh, this is good. It's the word called branding. And I could stop there, because every agent says, oh, I know what branding is. I do it all the time. So I got to tell you the story. I'm to be speaking with this guy named Jason. He is the top team in all of the United States with this particular real estate brand. And at the time I was speaking to him, his team did 1,500 transactions that year. Okay, so he's pretty big. And he's targeting this area of about 2,000 homes that we were starting to help him in geographic farming. And he was concerned that out of the homes that he's targeting, and maybe he was, I think it was maybe 1,000 homes or something that he was actually mailing to, he'd only picked up 2 listings in the first 12 months. And he's saying, Beatty, something's not right. Yeah. I said, well, Jason, the problem is your branding. Yeah. Oh, no, that can't be it. I said, why is that? He said, watch this. He said, I've been spending $10,000 a month for 2 years in my branding. I'm on the radio. I'm in the grocery stores. I'm on the billboards. Yeah. I'm on the park benches. I do a 15 or 12 or 15 page newsletter 4 times a year into that area. And so all of that's in that area that you're targeting. He said, yes. He said, I am well branded. I said, okay. And on the phone was a lady named Sam, who was his admin assistant. And Sam had been working with Jason for 10 years. So I said, so imagine for just a moment that all of those homeowners out there knew the skill, the expertise, and the experience, and the dogged drive that you bring to the table to sell their home for the most money. And they knew that as intimately as Sam knows it about you. If that were the case, I first asked, well, how many listings came on the market? He said about 200. So how many of those you got? He said, I got about 2. So, and then I started going through this and saying, imagine if all those 200 homeowners understood what Sam understands about you. How many of those homeowners do you think you would have listed? And Sam pipes up and says, all of them.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the key. Branding is not what he thought it was.
Yeah.
He thought branding was spend a lot of money to get your name out there.
Yep.
That's Coca-Cola's version of branding.
Yep.
Branding is totally different. So in order to understand it, you have to look back at what drives a homeowner to actually choose an agent. And there are 3 things I have found, and I found this conclusively, that if they believe 3 things about you, that they will do business with you literally almost 100% of the time. In fact, so the 3 things are, number 1, can you sell my home for the most money?
Yep.
Number 2, can you sell my home in the least amount of time? And number 3, can you sell my home with the least amount of effort? Yep. And I was doing some marketing for an agent down in near Miami, Florida. His name is Roman, and he was targeting I think it's about a 1,500 home gated community, average sales price $800,000, and lots of agents in that area. He calls me up one day and he's laughing. He says, Beatty, I got to tell you, I just got another listing. I said, great, good. He said, but let me tell you about this one. He said, all right. He said, it was already listed by another agent in Heron Bay. That's the target area he's targeting. The homeowner is friends with the agent. The agent had listed it, but they've been getting my postcards and they both concluded I could do a better job. So she gave me the listing. How many times have you ever heard of a real estate agent giving up a listing to another agent because they thought that agent could do a better job?
I've had it once where someone co-listed it with me when I was doing my farm because they felt they needed my support, but it does not happen very often. And that's
no, it doesn't.
That's when you do good farming. That's you can achieve that because
So that is true branding.
Yeah.
Branding is where you occupy that number 1 position in that person's mind, that they believe they would be an absolute fool to choose anyone else besides you.
Yeah.
The way you get to branding, you have to now back into it a little bit more and understand the psyche with the homeowners. When you look at the homeowners out there, this is a long way to get to marketing, but you got to lay the foundation first if you want people to really understand it. So if you look at the psyche, what happens is in marketing, there's a concept known as outside perception versus inside reality. The outside perception is what the homeowners believe about you to be true. The average homeowner believes that all agents are the same, that all they do is stick a sign in the yard, list their home in the MLS, and wait for someone else to bring a buyer. And here's the interesting implication, Ryan. If I'm an agent and I'm marketing into a farm and they believe that I am just like every other agent, there's nothing that distinguishes me apart from anyone else, then think about this. It comes time to sell their home. They have no reason to call me over anyone else.
Yeah.
In their mind, they're saying, well, I can choose any agent and I'm going to get the same price in the same amount of time with the same amount of effort. Nothing distinguishes, okay? But the reality is there's this thing called an inside reality. This is what I was trying to encourage Jason about. The inside reality is you do things different. Yep. Your days on market is probably lower. Your list to sales ratio is probably higher. Your customer satisfaction is probably greater. You probably save more deals that other agents would lose on. You probably negotiate better and save them more equity. You probably help them prepare better so that they get a higher price right up front and there's fewer things to negotiate down on the inspection report, all of these things. But how do you quantify that? This is the key. The key is once you understand what your inside reality is, by the way, most agents don't.
Yes.
This is why they're bad marketers, is they go, well, I do the same thing as everyone else. Well, then fine. Why should I choose you? I got to tell you a quick. So we sold our home 4 years ago. I invited 3 agents in my community over to interview for selling it. And you know, the number 1 question I asked them, Why should I choose you over anyone else? And you know the number one answer they gave me?
I sell more homes, or I don't know.
I'm trustworthy.
Oh.
I build relationships.
Yeah.
I live in the community. Okay. Well, that's what they all say.
Yeah.
And so here's the problem. Unless you know how to set yourself apart from someone else, there's no reason for them to choose you.
Yeah.
So let me share the easiest thing you can do, and then I'm going to start to build from there, okay? So the best thing in marketing, when we started in geographic farming and we started to sell our services there, I would ask every agent that came through, I said, have you ever done geographic farming before? And most of them said no, and some said yes. So then I would ask them, were you successful? Did you make money? What percentages do you think said yes and no?
I would say 80% said no and 20% said yes, based on my experience.
Pretty much, yep. And then I asked them one final question. Let's say, okay, you're a marketer, you understand marketing. What's the next question you would ask? Those that were successful. Yeah, what did you do?
What'd you do?
And would you like to guess? I'll tell you the percentage response rate, but let's see if you can guess what they did. 100% gave me the identical answer. Okay, so when you're hitting 100% of what's made people successful, you know you're in the right direction.
Yeah.
Would you like to guess what that 100% answer was?
No, I'll let you tell me.
They were sending out just sold postcards.
Okay.
So think about this. Why is a just sold postcard the simplest form of best practices in marketing that you can ever do in geographic farming?
It's results based and showing that you actually achieved something. And instead of just saying I'm great, it's showing it that I actually achieved something.
It's exactly right. Let me so now I want to analyze a little bit further. So now I want to shift into a topic I call trust. Okay. All of this is to go into this one topic. The reason they buy you and use you to sell their home is because they trust you. And trust is divided into 3 categories. Each of these categories are necessary. If you only have one, you'll still make some sales, but if you have all 3 of them, you'll get 100% of all the listings, okay? Theoretically, right? Okay, but the more you do in all 3 of these categories, you're unbeatable. And I've seen one story. So we're starting this brand new 1,000 home farm, 960 homes technically, with Stuart Sutton, my friend. It's a geo farm. He's done all of his geographic farming with us, and he's never marketed there. It's a really good price point. It's a golf community. There are 2 agents who are the dominant players. Between them is about 20% total market share. And in his first 7 months, he has 14 listing appointments. His first year there, over 6 figures earning. He's the #1 sales agent. Pisses off the number 2 sales agent who's been #1 for 10 years. And she even, I heard through the grapevine, she even started threatening him. I don't know if it was death threats or something like that, but I mean, it just came out of the blue. And what happened was all 3 of these elements of trust, he played a part, okay? So what these are is the first element of trust is they have to trust that you're actually selling homes. Yeah. This is why the just sold postcard is so good, because it shows made a sale, made a sale, made a sale. Now, what happens a lot of times is we get in this myopic thinking, especially as agents, that, well, I don't have any sales to show off. I'm just starting this brand new farm. Doesn't matter, show off any other sale. What they need to see is that you're selling, not necessarily that you're selling in that farm. Yeah. If you don't have a sale in the farm. And then, this is really fun. So sometimes you're targeting a farm that has a uniquely distinctive architectural design than any other place where you're selling homes. Have you ever experienced that with your clients?
Yep.
Okay. So the question then is, if I'm targeting a farm that's let's call it 2-story Georgian house, and all of the other homes I'm selling are 1970s old modern style, 1 and 1.5 story. Okay. If I send those photos into that farm, right off the bat, they say, well, this isn't my neighborhood. Okay. Yeah. How do you get around that?
You ask if you can advertise other agents' sales in the neighborhood. I don't know. You tell me.
Okay, so there's a simpler answer.
Okay.
Rather than showing the exterior photo,
Oh, yeah.
take an inside photo.
Right.
Okay, a photo of the den, the master bath, the kitchen, because when that comes out, your postcard says just sold, top price, or 5 offers in 2 days for $10,000 over list. And they look at that and they go, wow. And in their mind, they're thinking this was a local sale.
Yep.
It looks like kind of the style homes of ours. So you can get outside of the architectural design by using an interior photo.
That's a good one.
And that way you can keep any sale that you're making and throw it into the farm. And it does. There is another thing. How did I say this? Homeowners don't care that you were the buyer's agent on the sale. In fact, it probably detracts their perception of your value if you say, and I represented the buyer. Okay, well, I want someone that represents a seller, right? If I'm going to sell my home. So when you use a buyer sale and you show off a photo, then don't mention I represented the buyer unless it's legally required in your area.
Yeah.
Just say, I sold another one.
Yep.
And leave it up to the homeowner to interpret what that means. Okay.
Yep.
Sold in 5 days on market, which is true. Okay. Makes you look like $1 million, even though you're the one that brought the buyer. Okay. So, so trust is that you show off your sales all the time. How much time? We're going to run out of time. What's our time?
Got another 20 minutes? Yeah, we're good.
Oh gosh, we're going to run out. Okay. So I'll have to shortchange a few things, but hopefully this is entertaining and informative. So the first thing is you show off your sales all the time. Okay. The second thing, that's the first level of trust, that they trust that you're always selling. And here's why this is important. I have 2 agents I'm thinking of. I'm pondering. I have 2 friends who are both agents, and I'm thinking about selling my home. I know they both sell because they've been real estate agents for 10 years. But one of them, I keep getting a postcard every month or every 3 weeks, sold another, sold another, sold another, sold another. Which of those 2 agents am I more likely going to choose?
The agent marketing consistently.
Yeah, the one who's marketing to me, they're both equal friends, but the one that I see selling all the time is going to win my favor. That's why the just sold postcard is so important. Yep. So now I've got another question. Now I've got 2 agents. I know them both equally as well. And I know that they're both selling homes all the time because I keep getting their marketing. What can one agent do different than the other that will extremely shift the tilt in their favor for me? Any idea of what I can do in marketing that will tilt the favor?
If it was me, I would say show them that you have buyers ready to buy in the area and show them that you've already got a line of people that would be interested.
Perfect. Okay, so now you're going down the second area of trust, and it's you're trusting your expertise and all of the internal reality of who you are, what you have, and the value that you bring. Okay, if I simply see someone that sells a home, sold, and over here on the other side, I see someone that is sold another home for $10,000 over list because I brought 5 buyers to the market, to the table, who were looking in that area.
Yeah.
Or another one, I sold this home in only 3 days, had 10 buyers competing on it because here's a list of things that I do, and it constantly works. In other words, once you start to decipher and to educate what it is that drove your sale to be successful, what you're doing is you're giving your homeowners an inside look into what we call your inside reality. Yeah. And that impresses them because now what happens is when I'm looking for a brain surgeon, I know they both do brain surgery, but one guy, I see all of these medical degrees, all these years of experience, all the papers that he's written, all of the people from all over the world that come to him for his expertise. And I see a guy who's just I know him. He's a friend of mine. He's a brain surgeon. Okay. I'm going to tilt toward the one that I have more data on to give me confidence that he has the expertise. So if you think about a listing appointment presentation, you're going on a listing appointment. Most presentations, whether it's a flip chart, a pamphlet, a PowerPoint, or anything like that, it's usually basically a structured sales presentation of all of the reasons why they ought to choose you. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. And so what you want to do in your marketing is basically take each of those reasons in a little bite-sized piece. And if it mostly this is done in Postcard, and put that as a postcard. So you say, just sold this home, give a little detail about what happened with the sale, and then one reason or two reasons why that sale was successful. Sold this home because I have 87 buyers actively looking right now in the Cahaba Heights area. Okay. And so now as a homeowner, I go, wow, that's impressive. Then the next one that comes out says, another one sold top price because I went through and we helped prepare the home. I actually had it inspected, identified everything that could have been come up on a inspection report, fixed those so it showed beautifully the first time. And best prepared homes always get the top price, and this proves it. And then the next postcard, it gives another thing, and then another thing. So what's happening is over time, we're educating those homeowners why. Another story. So we have an agent named Josh. He was marketing this farm for a year, no results. He called me up, said, can you improve it? And I said, I think we can. We shifted the marketing to this inside reality approach. He starts making sales, getting a 16-to-1 ROI in his investment in postcard marketing into a farm, average sales price $225. So just a tremendous return on investment. Yeah. And he said, Beatty, what's really fun is, I wish I had my props with me, all these postcards, but he would say, yeah, I'd show up on a listing appointment. He said, I'm getting phone calls and they're saying, Josh, can you come sell my home? And another half of the other were saying, Josh, my home's on the market. It's not selling. Can you come sell as soon as my contract expires? And when he would get to the appointment, they would have all of his postcards still. And they'd fan them out and say, look, I've kept all your postcards, because every one of those postcards was sharing something that you're supposed to do in how you sell a home to get top price. And it's something that he says, here's one of the things that's important to do, and here's why I do it.
Yeah.
And so it became a how do you get your home sold for the top price type of education. So they kept it. And he was the one that educated them. So they said, he must have all the expertise. Okay. Yeah. So that's the second part.
That's great, because I want to just touch on that for a second, because a lot of times agents will wait till the listing appointment to share that information, and they wait and say, well, that's my listing presentation, I don't want to give that away. And the reality is they're educating them so that you get the listing appointment. Don't wait till you get the listing appointment to share that stuff. So turning that into your marketing is really smart, because no one else is doing that, most likely in your neighborhood, unless you're using your system to do that, so that it's pre-warming them up. And then the listing appointment, that becomes that much easier, because you either rehash what they've already talked about, or they don't even have to discuss it, because they know the kind of things you're doing, which is awesome.
Yeah. And just like this podcast, Ryan, people are going to listen to this, say, I got it. But if you go back and listen to it again, you're going to get a lot more out of it.
Yeah.
What happens is when you go to the listing appointment, you share the same stuff, and now it's familiar, but now it sinks in even more. But on that, so there's another thing we do. I won't talk about this because it's slightly different, but there's a what we call a marketing packet, or I call it an About Me packet, that anytime you have a listing appointment scheduled, or someone's thinking about selling, you send this to them, drop it off at the doorstep or anything like that. What we've found is it's taken, for most of our agents who use it, an average listing appointment time of 1.5 hours to 2 hours down to 30 minutes.
Nice.
And because they've already bought you by the time you get there, because they go through it. And in those environments where you're in a competitive situation, it almost always shifts the deal towards you, because it reinforces why they should use you over someone else. And then when they're interviewing these agents, so why should I choose you over these other agents? I'm honest, I'm trustworthy, I work hard. And then you're coming here with specific information that gives them confidence you know what's going on.
Yeah, that's great.
So those are the first two elements of trust. The third element of trust is, how can I say this? It's responsible for probably at least 50%, if you can get it in there. and maybe 80%, if you do it right, for them to choose you. And it comes out of the book, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, chapters 2 and 3. We're going to test, I won't test you, but it talks in terms about what type of list you're targeting.
Yeah.
And Gary separates the list into 2 categories. Do you remember that? You've read the book,
of course.
I'm sure.
Your Mets and your unmets.
Your Mets and your unmets.
Yep.
Do you know statistically how much more likely a Met is to do business with you, all else being equal, versus a not Met?
Because it's 50 to 1 and then 1 to 12 or 2 to 12. So it'd be 10 times more likely.
Yeah, 10 times. We measured it between 8 and 10 times. Yeah. Okay. And so if you want to be successful in that farm, do whatever you can to give them a chance to meet you in any other environment other than the professional environment of your professional presentation on Postcard. So this is where sending a video email blast out into the farm, just a little selfie video with you, talking about something that they would have interest in, doing events in the farm where you can meet them, like a ice cream social down at the park. Okay, all the way to we ran into something in Postcard that was really phenomenal. We've been doing Postcard mailing to this guy's farm for several years. His name is Zach. I'm talking to Zach at the end of October. And by the way, in the general typical residential real estate, when do most of the sales occur? What months?
Like month where we are, it's March to November, but I think it's about 60% of the sales are between March and July.
Yeah. It's just that swing as they're getting ready to summer. They sell during summer so they can be ready for school.
Yeah.
So Zach was saying, Beatty, can we mail that postcard out that we mailed back in January? And this is almost the end of the month, end of the year. I said, well, sure, but why? He said, because it produced half of all my listings.
Wow.
Yeah, I said, wow, exactly. So you know what I did? I went and looked up all of his cards and said, what was different with January's card than everything else? By the way, this is the mark of a marketer. You always test and look at what works, right? And there was one thing different on that postcard. I don't think you'll ever figure it out, but just to see if you can guess, what do you think the one thing that was different about that postcard than all the others?
Wouldn't it be worth me trying to guess?
Okay. So we're talking about the idea of a Met versus a not Met.
I would say maybe like a photo or something of him being in the community and connecting with people.
Bingo. That's it. It was a snapshot photo of him, his wife, his 3 kids sitting on the couch. And in the midst of whatever information was there was a one sentence. And by the way, we live in this neighborhood also. Our children go to school. So what it did is it brought realism so that homeowner says, he's a real person.
Yeah.
Okay. And what that does is it warms them up from your just being this professional persona to a real person. Yep. It's the first step in them meeting you. So we started testing this and we started measuring. It significantly increases results because now people in the farm, it doesn't work if you're mailing to your past clients and sphere of influence list because they already know you.
Yeah.
But when you're mailing to a farm, a list that they don't know, where they don't know you, then that breaks through and that increases results. So that's the best marketing. It's showing off yourselves, giving them your expertise and helping them understand why to trust you. And then whatever you can to build an opportunity for them to meet you either personally or vicariously through different methods so that they feel like they actually know you, they've engaged with you, they've interacted with you. And the more that happens, the higher the likelihood they're going to actually choose you.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great foundation because a lot of agents they always shoot from the hip with their marketing. They just try stuff and don't put a purpose behind it. They don't put psychology behind it. And then they think, oh, this looks good, or it's catchy, or it seems like a fun thing. And then those are the agents who try it for a few months, don't have success with it, don't really have a proven system or a way to track it. And you've obviously cracked the code on it and really tracked it because if you can do it, duplicate it, and you can do it over and over again, then you can track and make sure it's working. And that's really what it's about. And you have those key metrics, which are huge.
Let me, how much time do we have so I don't run over?
another 5 minutes or so.
Perfect.
We'll
Okay. Let me give one simple idea. This is more for the agents who have been sellers agents for a while.
Yep.
You made a number of listings and sales, and you do fairly well. If you look at your statistics, one of the cards that we do, and I stole this headline from Stuart, said, if you think I wish I could show this to you, but I don't have it pulled up. Otherwise, I do a screenshot. But the headline says, if you think hiring a professional is expensive, try hiring an amateur.
Yeah.
And then we show the list to sales price ratio in terms of dollars. Okay, so let's say that your list to sales ratio is 3% more than the average list to sales ratio.
Yep.
And then you're marketing to a $300,000 average sales price home. So now we can make the statement, Bill's homes sell $9,000 more for a $300,000 home than the average amateur agent. And then we can make the same statement in terms of days on market. Based on your days on market, Bill's homes sell 3.2 times faster than the amateur agent. Okay. So you can use those things and quantify and make it really easy for someone to go, wow. When you get that prospect to go, wow,
yeah,
you're hitting their brain and making that mindshare dominance. So that's just one way to execute on it.
That's awesome. So in the sake of time, I'll definitely have you back on the show again. We can dive in more, because I think there's a ton of stuff we can dive into. We always wrap up with a best piece of advice. So if people are looking to find the right farm or dive into marketing, what's one last piece of advice you'd give with our viewers?
The absolute best thing I could ever direct you to, you'll have to write this one down, okay? It's getsellerscallingyou.com. I have a link on there called free offer. And one of the things we did early on in the working in geographic farming is I did 21 split marketing tests with an additional 38 messaging tests, over 2 million postcards mailed, identifying what actually works. We found 3 or 4 things that produced over 800% increase over the control group.
Wow.
That means if I get one listing with a control group, I'll get 8 listings with the tested group. We found 3 of those things. Other things that produce between 2 and 3 and 400%. Okay. And so on that free offer is a short video I did, and I show you the actual things we tested. And we show the control and the test and the actual results increase. So if you're going to do any marketing, you've got to be able to get your marketing out in a way that it produces the highest results.
Yep.
And that free offer will tell you what those things are. Also at the website, getsellerscallingyou.com, I do a lot of other teaching and training on anything generated on getting sellers. So I think you'll enjoy it.
Awesome. We'll put that in the show notes so people can check that out. And we always wrap up with the last or your best book. So what's one book you'd recommend that's made an impact in your life, or you think would have an impact on our viewers' lives? So
marketing wise, the absolute best book I've ever read, because it's a compilation of everything that I've learned from Jay, from Gary, and all these others, is a book called Monopolize Your Marketplace by Richard Harshaw. It might still be in print. It might be out of print. But it has been the absolute best thing, because it helps you understand, how do you identify what makes you different from your competitors, and then how do you execute on educating people on that.
That's awesome. I'll have to definitely check that out. Being a marketing fan, I haven't heard of it, but I'll definitely look into that.
You will love it.
Awesome. And what's the best ways for our viewers to check out what you're up to, connect with you, and see what you're up to?
Okay, perfect. So if you love podcasts, please subscribe to my channel as well, Get Sellers Calling You. Okay, it's a great channel. If you want help in, so I love to teach, but what I do is I sell services to accomplished listings, and you can see what we sell at agentdominator.com. Almost all of the things we do have a money back guarantee, including, get this, we even do just sold postcards. And we guarantee a minimum of 2 listings out of every 10 that you do, or we'll refund 100% of your money back.
Wow.
So awesome. You'll see all that stuff over at agentdominator.com.
Awesome. We'll put that in the show notes and people can check that out. So Beatty, thank you for being on the show. I really appreciate your passion, your insights, and your experience as well. It's not just theoretical stuff. You really put this to the test, and sharing that with our audience. I know they're going to get a lot out of this. And if they're looking to take that to the next level, they can definitely check out what you're up to. So thank you for being on, and I really appreciate it.
Well, my pleasure. And you guys have a very blessed day.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for checking out today's episode. If you'd like more videos like this, be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out our Facebook page and our other social media channels. Looking forward to bringing you more great content like this, and happy farming.